Evening all, welcome back to Factorio Guides. So today we're going to look at fluids. What we're going to look at is ignore the nuclear irradiated wasteland here and look at the lovely oil. That's a huge wad of oil. Soon the American military will come sweeping over the desert to come seize this, which of course is cool. So what we're effectively going to do is look at how to master basically what is oil and fluid production. There's a few things we need to do. Now I am using my super save just because it's easier to show this, but everything will be standard quality. So there are kind of a number of things to kind of bear in mind with oil. So the first thing is obviously the first thing you'll probably want to do is just to do basic oil processing, and let's just have a look at that, which just is oil in and then petrol out, or gasoline, as many would call it. But obviously the correct English pronunciation is gasoline, is petrol, petroleum. So there we go. So that's your basic starter for 10. And let's look at maybe some of the factors to consider here. So if I come to, there we go. So we have some, oh gosh, a spoiled for choice almost. So we have our standard pump jack. So I'm just going to do couple of pump jacks there. Obviously the first thing you've got to do is power them in, so let's just do that nice and simply, and then you have to basically connect them, and I'm just going to do it thusly, and then all you're doing is just connecting them as you would see here. So that's it, simple as that. Oil goes in and then petroleum essence comes out, and we'll just put a little can there so we can just at least track what we're producing, and that's it. So again, you know, the starter for 10 is basically to do this. So this gets you going, right? Very quickly though, you will find that you actually, and the reason you do this is for plastic. So in the process of creating plastic, you need petroleum gas, and that's why, you know, effectively you're going to do that. But very quickly you're going to need things like heavy oil, light oil, and lubricant, because everybody needs lubricants. Tell your mum I said hi. So the next step is to basically then upgrade this to advanced. We'll come to the liquefaction in just a moment, but basically advanced is going to be pretty much where you'll be for majority of the game, I would say. You may even switch to coal liquefaction solely because you get to a point where you run out of oil. So these oil wells are infinite, but they do decline. So 31 per second will become 5 or 2 or 1. So there is like a ticking clock with all of this. What I probably would recommend is this design here. So you have effectively in a row the ability to scale and I guess tile this. So if I just, obviously we have to make it beautiful because those are the rules. So let's just bloop bloop bloop, and what we can then do is just basically copy, and you see how that works, nice and simple. So we can have 2 now, and again all you need to do is just make sure your power. So what I would tend to do, and please excuse legendary here, but because the normal power poles work perfectly fine, is you actually would have something like that, and you don't have to necessarily copy the power pole every single one. I think you do actually, ignore that, you do, because then you have something like that. So there we go. So that's pretty much how I would wire that in. And then the other thing you need is water. Well, thankfully we do have some water, so I'm just going to go and start there, and let's just then go and run a pipe all the way to the water, which is nice, and that didn't work. So offshore pumps is all you need, so we just get an offshore pump and connect that, nice and simple. Let's just bridge the gap, there we go. Hopefully it's not too long. Oops, there we go. So plugged in, boom. So we're now producing all 3. We're producing light oil and heavy oil, right? So we're now in a position where we need to start thinking about how do we capture this. Now, let me show you a little trick I do. So this is something I quite like to do, and I'm just going to show you how I do it, because I think things like this, that looks quite good. And then what you then have is a buffer. So you can have some, I mean, you could even do it like this. Now I look at it, there's no issue doing it like that, because the pumps will then just fill these up, and that looks quite good. I would do the same for water, just to be on the doubly safe side. So let's say we're going to make a 3x3, And in this case, I'm just going to turn that around because we want it to be the same level, but we could then just have 1 and 2, boom. So that's, again, simple, but I do think these little kind of storage buffers are definitely worth it. They used to kill UPS. I'm told they don't anymore. So it's actually worth doing. And then down here, you're spoiled for choice how you want to do this. I like a few designs like I'm about to show you, because I think they look rather nice in the overview. So if I just do that, and then that and that, and I come to the overview, ooh, doesn't that look sexy and nice? So that's potentially what we might do. You don't even have to have them like thus. You could have them like this. So you can improvise. So that gives you, again, it just looks, I don't know, something about it I quite like. So we're going to go with this design. So to create, and again, this is entirely up to you how you want to do it, but my recommendation is you create either vertical stacks like 1, 2, and let's say, just let's move that one to say there, and then you channel down into them, or you can have buffers, so you can actually then, you know, route round, but it's entirely up to you how you want to do this. So if I did something like, let's just get rid of this, and then that down to there, so that now is our Petroleum. We then would have, and again, I probably should angle these a bit better. Let's just move them in. I'm not usually putting them this close, but I will do just for comments and ease sake. So there we go. Is you then basically make little kind of stacks. So in this case, if you don't like the little jank, you can just remove that. That's fine. You can also just have it go like this, and then, oops, wrong one. You could do cool arty things. So I'm going to let you improvise how you want to do this, and then you could have something like that. So entirely up to you, but I would recommend, and you can do these little dog legs. You see how I'm doing them there? They do work. You just have to be a little bit careful when it comes to how you then make them look and operate. So there we go. So this, boom, nice. So we've got our 3 there. So these will then just run chonk, chonk, chonk. And we can then, if we wish to, expand and scale. So we could even move this one. Let's move this maybe over here. And then if we wish to, let's just remove the connecting pipe for the moment. We then can just add and continue to scale the oil. So everything flows directionally. We just need to connect this. Oops. We need to connect that back up to there. But you see how it works. Tileable, scalable, awesome, nice. A little nice flourish is always to put little lights between them as well. I always think that that is definitely worth doing. The only problem is you've got to power them. So again, you're probably going to be wanting to use things like this. Again, on the overview, it looks quite nice because it's nice and square, but it could be something, again, for consideration. So I'm just going to put that there just to light it. So there we go. And then here, just for ease of reference, you can do something like, I'm doing this wrong. Is it that? Is it that? There we go. So that's petrol. For example, you could then have that be light oil. How did you do yellow? Forgotten completely yellow. It's that in it. There we go. So you could do that, and then you could have that. So you can improvise. I would recommend this because that just makes it look rather pretty. From this point forward, then, that is your basic. So what you've created here is effectively oil. You've got water and oil being connected into your factories. I've not connected that properly. Why have I not connected that properly? It's because I did that. So there we go. Always keep an eye. One of the nice overviews here that I'm just going to show you is the fluid pipelines. So you see here, that really does help make sure that everything's connected, so we can see everything works. And the obvious one is to look for the flame, because if you don't see the flame, you've got a problem. But that's pretty much how you would want to work that. Now, what really is going to happen is you're going to produce these in odd quantities, because you're going to make, 55 petroleum, 45 light oil, and 25 heavy oil. So when it comes to now the things to kind of take this to the next step, which is building the products from this, you're going to have to think a little carefully now. So if I just go and get my let's just build a little hub here. Why not? And let me show you how I would do sort of standard cracking. So in this case, let's say we wanted to make, let's start with the simple one, lube. Just ask your mum, everyone needs lube. And lube is the simplest one to do because basically all it needs is an input and an output. So in this case, we're just going to go and do something like this. And then I think we're not even going to worry about storing lube because, to be honest, it's not that hard to do. So there we go. So we've got a nice simple 1 2 1 2 1 2 boom, and we just need to power it. I'm just going to bung anything there just to get it going. Right, so we then select lube and off it goes. Boom, boom, boom. Nice and simple, right? Heavy oil in, and then we have our lube. Now here's where I would include a bit of a trick. So this is something that I have pretty much always done. I'm just going to do it there so I don't have to move the power. So we have a pump into our heavy oil. We have a pump, right? This is where I think it starts to get a bit complicated, but don't worry, stick with it. All you need to do is make sure that you wire, let's take a red wire, and let's just wire every single one of these together, right? So you see I'm just going 1 to 1 to 1, clicking them, 1 to 1 to 1 to 1, and then I'll click it to the pump, right? So what that pump is now doing is it's connected to the red wire we just placed, and look, it's reading how much oil we have there, heavy oil. I'm going to make this conditional because we don't want to just burn all of our heavy oil all the time, right? So we're going to make it that basically it'll only pull heavy oil if there is a certain amount of oil in here. This is important for coal liquefaction, which we'll come to in just a moment. So in this case, all I do is I go to the fluids tab, select heavy oil, and then I'm going to say only enable this if heavy oil is over, let's say, 10,000. Okay, so you see it's disabled. Brilliant. That's exactly what we want. Now you could also do it the other way. You could wire in these and then have them connect to this thing, this pump, to basically say, okay, only activate if lube drops below a certain number. Does that make sense? And I think that's probably gonna, that will also work. So circuitry is really, really useful, but it is also complex. I get it. It took me years to really understand what the heck I'm doing, and even now I'm an amateur at best. But this is kind of step one. So if I was going to, and obviously I'm triggered by the fact that that's not beautifully in the middle. There we go. So now this is our lube. Now what we need to do is figure out the next step, which is to process our light oil. Now you use light oil for a lot of different things. The primary one I would say is pretty much fuel blocks. So you make fuel blocks to make fuel. Hopefully that's obvious. But you see here you have 3 recipes: solid fuel from petroleum gas, solid fuel from light oil, and solid fuel from heavy oil. So the most efficient one is light oil. So it takes 10 units of light oil to make a block, right? For the other ones, it's 20. So there's not really much point doing that from the other two. You can use them for other things. And when it comes to it, again, one of the things that you're going to want to do is to balance all of this. And this is probably the next step to talk about, because again, this starts to get quite complex, but stick with it. It does make sense. So let's just build another little plinth for our factories to sit upon. It should be like Dune 2, that if you don't build your factories on a plinth on a desert, they deteriorate. But there we go. Old game reference for the win. So let's, in this case, look now at how we turn one thing into another. Because quite often what you're going to do is you're going to need way more petroleum because of plastic than these two. So that is something to definitely consider. So, for example, I'm just going to build something completely off the cuff that I think looks quite nice. And we're going to have a look at how this works. Now, you do need water for this. This is a bit of a pain. Because if we want to turn heavy oil, let's start with heavy oil, into light oil, that we do need water. So we need to find a way to run water here. So we need water in, and we also need the heavy oil. So this is why we're going to have another pump here. Heavy oil is there, so we're just going to do that. It's a shame that that's not connecting. I'm just going to, please excuse the messiness now. There we go. So what this then will do is give me the ability to feed the oil through. And again, we could build conditions into this. I'm not going to, because I can't really see a point where we're going to need to do that. And in this case, we then need to run to the water. So I like solid, chunky pipes. And that's my dating profile, apparently. But what this basically gives me there is, let me just go to there, and I'm just going to place that there. So there we go. So we've got heavy oil coming in, we've got water coming in, and we now have light oil coming out. So what we want to do is route the light oil to here, okay? But and that's as simple as it gets. And again, this is all tileable. So again, if we wanted to, we would have something like this. So, oh, did I just shoot it? Whoops. Good start. And then that gives me the ability to just then, and again, I do like the solid pipe. I think it looks rather nice. And ignore all the weird janky bits. Boom. So then we have effectively this being drained. As you can see, it's pretty much empty now, into this. So nice and simple, right? But the idea is you're turning one oil into heavy oil into light oil. Useful because you're going to need that an awful lot, right? But it's also, you've got to balance it because you need lube. So this is why, again, you probably want to have a wire here that just says, okay, this reads the signal and only enable this if heavy oil is above, and let's say 20. Okay, so you'll always have quite a bit of heavy oil. You'll always have lube because that's less. That number's less, 10k. And this then will mean that you'll always have one fluid, because you'll again need this for coal liquefaction. So following so far? I bet you are, because you're clevs. And that's pretty much the first step. What we then want to do, if I just copy all of this, and I'm just going to do the same for the light oil. Now the ratios here are completely off. Heavy oil to light oil is like you need 4, whereas for light oil to petroleum you need like 10. So think of it as like 3 times. It's 3 times the requirement. In this case, we can do this. I think I should show you this because it's probably just going to confuse you if I do not. Is we can, let's see if I just do this. So that feels more like the right ratio now. You can go to the website and have a look at ratios. There is a Factorio cheat sheet in Factorio ratio. I would recommend doing that, but you can do that. And this then gives you the perfect ratio. But I've always done something like this. It always feels a bit like gut feel. Same process. So we need water again. And water in this case is coming into, so I'm just going to take it around. Again, I do like the way these things start to look. I think they look quite pretty. And in this case, we could take the light oil from our heavy one, but in fact, we'll just do that for ease. There we go. So now we have effectively, you can just plug in everything in, just wire everything in. And then once we click that, it should start. Oh, there's no light oil. So let's just feed, excuse me while I do this. So let's just feed our main tank back in there. There we go. So now we're producing petroleum essence. Okay, so nice and simple. And in this case, what we'll do is we'll take that round and feed that into there. So in a weird way, what we've done, so let's just look at what we've done in mere minutes, is produce an oil refinery setup that then refines into tanks and silos, that then we produce the main component of lube for one of them. We start to then balance, so we actually start to see in this case, you know, we're running out of the other ones, but we're then gaining petroleum, and then we can go and do our plastic run from that petroleum. That's great. We can also then run our ones here. Now, I would even say that you probably want to then limit this as well, because you do need light oil. You need a lot of it, in fact, to do the bricks. So let's just do a final look at that to get this right. So it should be 1, 2, and let's just build one. Oops, got that wrong. So let's just build this, and then what we can look at 1, 2 is the final step, which is to produce some bricks from this. So I'm just going to do the same again, and in this case we're doing it from light oil. So you see there it only takes 10, so it's definitely worth doing with light oil. And we then just plug this in, and then all we need to do is feed liquid oil into it. Really simple. So in this case, we could just have, I'm just going to do, oops, something like this, because that looks rather pretty to me, but you probably hate it, and that's fine. Each to their own, my brothers. And that's basically then all you need. So you do need to balance this. This is where, again, pumps connected to logic. So again, in this case, I would be wiring these up and see how I'm doing it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I can connect that to a pump that then says stop when I hit go below a certain level. An example I would probably cite here is, and I'm actually going to show you this. So in this case, let's say this is our cracking one. Then what we want to do is probably put, oh, actually I want that, is put a pump. Let's see. Let's just remove that one because I don't want to confuse it with the heavy oil. And I think heavy oil will come back to. But what this basically now is showing me is if I build something like this, right? So I now can wire this one. This pump is now connected to this one. So look, I can see how much heavy light oil I have now. And I will make this only activate when light oil, let's say, goes above 50k, right? Because what that's going to guarantee is we have 50k not being turned into petrol. Okay, follow that? So at every point, the game will stop converting down into petroleum, and only if it will basically only do it if it has more than 50k. In this case, we want it to actually do the fuel blocks, but eventually you'll run to a point where you have all the fuel blocks you need because you produce all the fuel cells you need, and then that's pretty much it, because these go on to produce, let me just show you why that's important. These go on to produce, that's interesting. I always thought they were done in again, skews the legendary. They produce these things. So what you then have to obviously do is wire light oil in again. But what that then gives you is the fuels. Let me just show you this. 1, 2, 1, 2. And I'm just going to do this in a real janky way, but there we go. Simple, really, but there we go. So that's how you produce fuel. And once that's produced enough fuel, you actually don't want it to then lock. It will just fill those tanks up and then lock the system. You want it to then convert to something else. So that is pretty much your entire oil setup in a very quick and simple way. We'll probably look at coal liquefaction next time, because there is a little bit, in fact, I can show you a very quick example of it. I think on Vulcanus, let's just have a quick look. Here somewhere. So there we go. No, ignore that. There are two other forms, because that was actually this one, which is using calcite to create heavy oil. That's how you do it on Vulcanus. But coal liquefaction uses steam. So we'll look at that another time. But I think certainly to get you going on oil, that's a good starter for 10. Hope you enjoyed that. Post in the comment section any questions you have, and obviously join the Discord and let's converse and talk about oil, because these are cool topics. Hope you enjoyed that. We'll see you next time.